17th of May 2026. My name is Francisco Gaffney. This is my live stream all about governance, risk, compliance, and advisory boards. And we have the models straight away in front of us, the advisory board operating system. And this is a whole system as a whole, but let me focus on today's topic, which is about transformation, reinvention, and the edge, the innovation that your company can produce in the time. So let me go right into focus area that we need. There you are. So this is where we're going to focus today. And here's one thing that I want to mention, because edge or transformation, reinvention sometimes is confused and bring several things close to it. So having more projects, having more activity, and having or doing more things about what is considered the transformation, reinvention of the company is not necessarily the best thing to do unless you have certain sequence or processes already established and you can describe in one sentence exactly what you're going to do. And I think that this is pretty much a summary of what we are going to discuss today. And here we go then. So here's the point. The founders, the companies, the executive teams feel pressure from every direction, every single day, every single time. So AI, cost, customers, regulations, competitors, new business models. So the temptation is to launch more projects, right? So I say, oh, we have to keep up to date with the things. So that's not your transformation, that's not your innovation. But because more projects don't create or do not create this transformation they're looking for. It's pretty much you are keeping up at the pace, and you have to choose what pace are you keeping up to. So it's often what we many times is seen as more noise, more the grinder, the hustling. But really, what is innovation? What is a transformation? How you go beyond what you are doing to grow your revenue, to increase your revenue actually, or to scale your company, or to bring a better foundation to your organization. And here's a study that's coming from the Business Development Bank of Canada that shows that advisory boards help companies with broader visions and new ideas and innovation, right? So here's the thing, is a broader vision. It's not just the next shiny object in front of you. It's the broader vision of what a company would look like in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, something like actually is beyond the future and the immediate urge to do whatever is happening in front of you. So these are the new ideas, and this is where the innovation is coming from. Now, when I'm speaking of innovation, people think I say, we're going to do something amazing. You don't have to. And this is the beauty of it. And I always bring the example of Steve Jobs when he came back to Apple in 1997. And he, instead of doing bigger and faster or more grandiose, if you mean, what he done, he cut 75% of the production line, right? And that was the innovation. So shrinking the production line actually was the innovation. So sometimes it's not to do something flashy and new. Sometimes it's something just cut the things that are not relevant, or where you have a lot of friction competing in one-to-one to feature by feature, launch by launch with your competitors. And look what Apple is doing today. Their biggest innovation, every time that they launch a new iPhone, is innovative, in brackets, because what is the biggest change from the last version of iPhone, right? Perhaps a camera different position, a few megabytes or a few gigabytes more of memory, a few two or three things, technology enhancement. So it's usually 3, 4, 5% better or wider wider in terms of features compared to the last model. So innovation, you start to see that actually is not far from the things that you already know. If you go too far from the things that you already know, the things you already know, I'm referring to your market, your consumers, your customers, then it's a kind of a cultural shock. And you go like, what is this? It's very weird. It's very strange. I don't want it. Who else is doing this? and they start to ask around instead of focusing on buying your products, right? Like for example, and back to the Apple example, the touch screen phones was not something new. They existed in the market, marketed to people 9 to 10 years earlier to the first iPhone in 2007. In 1996, you already had versions of touchscreen mobiles with very similar functions that the iPhones in the market. And actually, even Prada launched 2 years before the iPhone a model with, I don't quite remember if it was Nokia or Motorola. They launched a model that was a Prada mobile phone. I was a touchscreen mobile, right? It cost like $5,000, something very crazy money. But the point is actually technology existed, was so foreign at the time that actually people would say, I don't know if I want this, I don't understand it. But then when it was wrapped in the right position, in the right place, with the right frame, the iPhone become a boom, a global boom, and then you got the Androids, etc. Right? So be careful when you're looking into innovation to do something flashy, new, and fantastic, because there might be two things. You might look into shrink things because they are not very productive for your organization and probably creating more friction than benefits, or get into something like it actually is adopted very quickly by your consumers, and then you can increase your revenues, etc., etc. So this is why I assemble international advisory boards around these milestones. If the milestone is transformation, the company might need expertise in operation model designs, in AI adoption, how to manage your data, commercial strategy, people change, governance, etc., etc. So not forever, not for the just for the phase in front of the team or your organization today. So it's not a big consulting overhead. It's not a talent locked in, and every 6 months we can change the advisory board or renew it to ensure the expertise aligns with the next stage that you're going through. So I mentioned a few things, and let's look into some statistics. These statistics are good because are very interesting. These are business principles, and now are backed by surveys with the organizations in country. I'm using the UK because they're very transparent. You can download it and then you can study it in your own time. But I give you the glimpse of three main problems that have been found so far in terms of transformation. Problem number one is uneven adoption. That means that companies have, for example, an AI, when you want to innovate or transform your organization, the biggest technologies problems are the adoption, right? So it's not about these Claude or GPTs or Gemini things. Actually, you put a prompt and something's coming up. So when organizations look into AI transformations, they have big challenges. And actually, Gartner already reported that 40% of the AI projects by next year, 2027, are going to fail, the big projects in large organizations. And that organization, and we're not talking about thousands of employees, we are talking about companies with 250 employees or more, right? So from that standpoint, you already start to get about 40%, according to Gartner's surveys and studies, that probably 40% of your projects, AI projects, are going to be with gaps, or you probably need to wind them up because they are not going to work. The second problem is the weak management systems. And here is a key thing. And I mentioned this again, and I mentioned that several times this week, last week, and I think that from the last month. You are as good as the people that you have around you, right? So your teams, your organization, your company, is when you're launching this kind of project, people look forward and forget to look sideways. So who are with you working and delivering this project? So we have a company last week that wanted to expand their business, opening branches, etc. They were very good doing the things. They are very good doing the things that they do so far. But guess what? they are very, very local. So their success is pretty much based on the connection that their own management team and their own employees have in that area of that country, right? So what happened there is when they wanted to go to the north side of the country, they started to have issues, problems, low traction, etc., etc. Because the way that they did it in the places where they were developing their company was not the same thing that the other peoples in the north of the country were doing. Actually, it was a cultural clash. You see? So what was the solution? We put an advisory board, and the first thing that we did, I said, we need a managing director or a direct business director that is a local person in the geographies that you want to go. Is the first thing that we've done. And guess what? Actually, these already change the way that the whole organization shape, because now it's not divided in two areas. It's actually they now have a traction in they were going to have traction because we are going into that process now in the place where for the last year was very difficult to try to get into establish their organization in that market. And this is one country. They are not going cross border. So imagine that what happened cross border. Now, this is why the quality of your team, quality doesn't mean that actually the capacities and experiences. It means also where the people are located and where is the background in that location. And the third problem is a poor foundation. And this is happening again and again and again. And I mentioned this already. So is where you say the shiny objects. So the things actually you cannot describe in one word. This is where we're going to do, how we're going to do it. You probably have, this is what we've been doing so far. It would be a great idea to go there and increase our revenues. This is our growth, our scaling. And sometimes that's a major issue because as you don't have defined what is that age that you want to create. You don't define what that's a transformation. You don't define what is that growth, that scaling. It's pretty much, oh, we are doing good. We have some cash. We are going to invest there. You probably need to think that very well. So in other words, imagine that your transformation, your innovation, your edge is a relay race, right? Like a track race, a relay race. So the speeds means very little if the baton that you have to transfer to your colleague or your runner gets dropped between teams, right? Or between the team members. So if every time the baton is dropped somewhere, you have very little chances of success, even if you have the best runner, even if the track is the same for everybody, even if the conditions are the same for everybody. Is a quality of passing that baton between teams. So that's why in relay race, one of the biggest chunk of training is to the graphs on how they interact passing the baton one to the other. So one makes transformation look busy, so, and while still failing to move the company forward, right? So what is that? So this is where teams get stuck, or you get stuck as a founder. So the edge you're looking for is not defined, and I mentioned this already. This is a company trying to make faster decisions, lower cost to serve, improving retention, increasing pricing power, or entering a new market. What is it? So if you cannot define this very, very well, so the people doesn't have in their mind the picture to understand what they are doing. So if the edge is vague, they don't have a clear, very neat picture of what you want to do. The work becomes scattered, right? So it's like a puzzle, but actually you don't know where you start, where you put the things together. You might have all the pieces of the puzzle, but actually how you start with putting the frame together or from one angle to the other angle. So there are different strategies. This is exactly the same thing. You have to put it together. So this another challenge is that technologies move faster than actually the company can keep up on pace, right? So, and the example here is AI. So you go and do a very good, interesting project in Gemini or Claude or whatever is the case, and say, oh, this is what we're going to do. Right. This is one of the things that most of the time fails, because actually you'd overtrust in something that actually have not the people involved there. It's all theory. And yeah, it might be very well documented. And we've seen companies that have this figured out, and they come back to us and say, actually, we need people to understand what we are going to do, because effectively we have all these AI agents and things and the others, and they put a very, very complex system together, and then they have to go and trigger one piece, and then go personally and trigger the second piece, and then go personally and trigger the other piece, etc., etc. So what was the purpose of doing that, actually? And then how you have the control of mechanisms to get that working towards the objectives that you have, and not babysitting a system that actually probably you need to understand how it works first before start to babysitting to deliver the results or the outcomes that you're looking for. And the third thing where people get stuck, or company gets stuck, is a transformation is treated as a project list, right? So it's like, we're going to do this and this and this and this, and there's stiff. There is no change. It's exactly the way that we think that it's going to do, and this is the way we do it, and this is the way that we reach out to this point in our life in terms of revenue, growth, scaling, etc. And we are going to continue doing the same thing. Well, many times this is pretty much the success that kills many organizations, because not having the capacity to adapt your organization to the changes also is start to drag your past glories into the future and sink your boat. And this is the example I brought at the beginning. When Steve Jobs came back to Apple in 97, the first thing that he did is just to cut that drag. He said, we are not going to compete one-to-one. We are an innovating company. We are going to deliver something that the customers and the technology and also our artistic capacity delivers something beautiful, right? So competing feature by feature, like this is a marker and this is a marker, yeah, different shape, different form, etc. But at the end, both have exactly same function. They mark things. So that's what Steve Jobs said. Hold on a second, we're not going to do this. We're going to do something different. So if we are going to change, for example, these two markers are very similar one to the other. One is a crystal clear cap and the other one is a black cap. So bringing a new marker with a different feature, it doesn't mean that actually if we can put, I don't know, a clear cap, is a very, very, very exhausting exercise, because you are competing cap against cap against cap with a clever design or a clever material, but it doesn't make any difference. So what will change if your board of your executive team or yourself as a founder stop asking what are we doing, but start asking what edge are we building, right? So it's like a trunk of a tree. So when you see the trunk of a tree, you can count the years for every circle of new layer of the tree in the trunk, right? So here are three practical moves on what an advisory board does at this stage. Number one, we choose one edge, one sentence. We are reducing cost to serve, might be one. We are improving forecast quality, might be other. We are using AI to shorten customer response time, might be other. If the board or the executive team or yourself as a founder cannot say it, the organization cannot execute it, right? So you have to be very, very clear of what you're saying, what is your edge. In terms of sequencing that I mentioned earlier, sequence the change. So where is coming what, when, and why. Use the advisory board to decide what comes first, what waits, what stops, and what proof points matter next, right? Because if you don't evidence all this process, then how you can trace back where you have to make improvements and where you have to do or challenge yourself and to say, probably here we haven't done something that is not the best decision at the time, but we did it with the best knowledge of the time, but now we have the capacity to amend this because you have documented what this decision, how they were made. And the third thing is to bring the capabilities at the pace that you are in. This is very hard if you're hiring one talent, but if you are hiring an advisory board that you can use the mix of the board to diagnose, to find other designs or find another kind of deliveries, etc. This is where in every 6 months we can swap members. So then you get the best talent, the best advisory, the best connections in the markets to deliver your edge, your transformation, your innovation, rather than stuck with the same thinking for too long to the point that you say, okay, we are failing and we don't know why. It's probably because your cognitive diversity, how people think, how people see things, are exactly the same. So you pretty much you have blinkers on your side, and you have all these blind spots that an advisory board and external members from the outside in can bring you that capacity, that broader vision that we mentioned earlier, to go and do it better. Now, if you are an executive team or a non-executive director or a founder, and you want to understand better how an international advisory board can turn your transformation into a sharper stage value creation plan, let's have a 30-minute call so I can understand where you're coming from, where you are, what you're looking for into the future, and how we can put together something that actually really delivers what you're looking for. So let's pause it here for today and reconvene tomorrow, because tomorrow I will pull all the model together. So what is scaling, what scales predictability, your systems, and we spoke about resilience yesterday, and the edge today, all together into one board operating system that deliver results for you. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow.